There are moments when you feel something deeply, but you can't find the words. Truth pulses inside you, real, urgent, alive. Yet when you try to name it, it vanishes. Why is it that the most important things in life, love, pain, awe, the sheer fact of being, can so easily become unspeakable? Wittgenstein had an answer. Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. But what does that mean? What does silence have to do with identity, with gender, with grief, or even with the search for truth itself? This is the story of a man who built a ladder to understanding and then lit it on fire. The year is 1914. War is erupting across Europe. But in a solitary cabin overlooking a ford in Norway, a young man sits in silence, Ludwig Wittgenstein. He's not writing letters or poetry, he's trying to contain the chaos of thought itself. He wants to find the structure of reality. He believes that language, if purified, can become a mirror of the world. If we can understand the logic of language, perhaps we can grasp the logic of existence. He wasn't a philosopher by training, he was an engineer. He discovered philosophy by accident, through Bertrand Russell, and within years, he shook the foundations of the field. But this wasn't about theory, it was a personal quest. He needed clarity the way most people need air. Language, he believed, was not just a tool, it was the shape of thought. If we could understand the limits of language, we could know the limits of our world. And so he began to write. Every sentence, every proposition was a step toward clarity, a step toward truth. But he discovered something strange. The closer he got, the more the ground began to dissolve. In his book, Tractatus, Logico-Philosophicus, Wittgenstein built a precise structure. The world is made of facts. Facts can be pictured in propositions. Propositions are made of words. Therefore, the structure of language must reflect the structure of the world. So far, it's crisp, logical, mathematical. But then, something unravels. What about ethics? What about meaning? What about the mystical? These things can be felt, but not pictured. They resist logic. They resist being pinned down, he writes. The limits of my language mean the limits of my world. And then, the stunning confession. My propositions are elucidatory in this way. He who understands me finally recognizes them as nonsensical, must, so to speak, throw away the ladder after he has climbed up it. He didn't just build a system, he built a trap. Then he escaped it. He used language to point beyond language. He revealed that there are truths which cannot be spoken, only shown. So what does it mean for something to be unsayable? For Wittgenstein, language works when it models reality. When a statement corresponds to a fact, the glass is empty, the sun is setting. There is a bird on the windowsill. These are checkable, observable, shareable. But what about this? I am in love. I feel like a stranger in my own skin. My mother's eyes held a silence deeper than time. These statements carry weight. They are meaningful, but not in the way a fact is. They express something that can't be broken into parts, something that can't be logically verified. This is where language fails and where silence begins. But it's not the silence of ignorance. It's the silence of depth. The silence of a sunset that leaves you breathless. The silence after your child is born. The silence of grief, of presence, of eternity. It's a knowing that escapes words but not experience. Today we live in a world drowning in words. Tweets, posts, pings, takes, labels. Everything must be said, declared, defined. But sometimes, the most important parts of ourselves refuse to be pinned down. Try to define your gender experience in a single sentence. Try to explain why you still cry at that one song. Try to tell someone what it meant to lose your father. Language begins to stretch, then tear. And in that tear, there's truth. A truth that doesn't need explanation, only presence. Wittgenstein helps us see that not all understanding requires speaking. Not every truth can be tweeted. Not every feeling can be explained. Some things must be shown or lived or simply shared in silence. When someone says, "I don't know how to describe it," that's not failure, that's depth. Later in life, Wittgenstein left philosophy behind. He became a school teacher, lived in seclusion, chased simplicity, but his legacy only deepened. He shattered the illusion that logic could contain life. He taught us to respect the limits of language, not to retreat from truth, but to approach it differently. So what did he mean? Whereof one cannot speak, thereof one must be silent. He meant this. There are truths so intimate, so fundamental, they cannot be said. They can only be shown. And sometimes silence is not the absence of meaning, but the fullness of it. So the next time you can't explain why you feel the way you do, when words fail you in front of beauty, grief, or love, remember, you're not failing. You're reaching the edge. And at the edge of language begins the mystery of being. Stay curious, and let the silence speak. Watch another episode to continue the search.